Here's a page of figure studies in gouache on a gray ground that I primed with acrylic. So the gray ground really helps set up much more of a neutral and makes it easier to be both lighter and darker than what's behind it pretty quickly. Here's a slightly different technique, but same ground. This is ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and white in acrylic on a gray ground. Again, the ground really makes things go a lot quicker. And here's a monochrome, just burnt umber and white on the same ground. The paper I'm using is a watercolor paper. You could use Bristol as long as it's heavy enough to get it wet without buckling too much. But in all of these cases, the gray ground makes things go so much faster than white. And here's exactly the gray I'm using. It's golden neutral gray number 6. I found from trial and error this to be a really useful value. So if you want, you're welcome to try other values, but this one worked perfectly for me. So I did try other grays in the sketchbook. N4 was way too dark, lightening up a little bit to N5, still a little dark, everything looks light on it. N6 about perfect, the darks and lights both show really well. I decided to try a little bit lighter as well. These are the little color notes are all the flesh tones I use a lot for the figures. So the N7 a little too light, but the N6 just about perfect. The darks and lights both show really well. So that's how I arrived at this being the useful value. So I'm going to go ahead and apply some of this acrylic paint, neutral gray number 6, to this paper. I want to keep the paint thin, so I'm going to put multiple coats on thin. When I use the brush, I'm just going to put the end of the brush into the acrylic. You don't want to get a big blob on there because then you get a lot of acrylic on there, which is hard to get quiet later. And since I want a quiet surface, I want to do thin layers multiple times. Here's a time lapse of applying the acrylic paint to the paper. Once I get the paper all wet, I alternate horizontal and vertical brush strokes until I get the paper nice and quiet. And then here's a close-up of how the paper looks with some drawings on it. So I find this ground really useful for a lot of techniques, and I hope that you will as well.